Welcome back. You're watching the CNBC TV 18 special as the telecom sector in India completes 25 years. One of its active participants and now observers has written to Prime Minister Modi asking the government to reimagine India's telecom policy. Let's continue our chat with Rajiv Chandrasekhar. You know, Rajiv, when you talk about developing a pro-investment plan, especially when we aspire to connect all of India and take forward the aspiration of digital India and so on and so forth. And let's be clear, it is going to be private sector capital and private entrepreneurship again that is going to be able to achieve the kind of numbers and the kind of connectivity that's required. So how does the government then, forget about the bailout, but how does the government then sweeten the deal for the private sector to come in to fulfill the obligations of the Digital India mission and Bharat broadband, etc.?
No, so I don't think today, Shereen, I have all the answers to all your questions, but I'm saying it is important for us to start this discussion and lay out, in a sense, a roadmap of what we...
Do you believe that there is merit there, Rajiv? When you talk about putting together a pro-investment plan, do you believe that the government will have to rethink a lot of the kind of conditions, a lot of the kind of regulatory burden, financial burden, so to speak, to be able to encourage the private sector to make these large investments?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not so sure I want to suggest what the measures are, but that the government must be, the regulators must be taking as much of a pro-investment approach to growing the sector and growing services and growing investments as they do pro-consumer is a no-brainer. Yes, the answer is yes. But I don't believe that that necessarily means only giving more softs to the existing 3 or 4 companies.
Fair point.
I don't buy the argument. Yeah, I don't buy that argument. So I think it is quite conceivable that over the next decade there may be new players, there may be more new disruptive technologies that may make the existing legacy players irrelevant. So I think as long as the government creates a pro-investment framework that encourages investment, creates equal opportunity for all investors, and essentially allows investors and investments to compete on innovation, compete on customer service, quality. On that there is no dispute. But to take that argument to say that the existing 2.5 operators or 3 operators must be given a special deal is not necessarily saying the same thing.
No, I agree with you on that, Rajiv. But, you know, since you talked about the 2.5 and 3 operators, again, this sector is seeing consolidation, and I would imagine that that's probably the number that we're going to come down to. It is probably going to come down to that. But what is that then going to mean, especially when you talk about, consumer benefits, when you talk about the fact that we move perhaps from an overcrowded market to a market which will then perhaps move towards becoming a duopoly?
No, and that's precisely the point that I make, that one of the issues is about improving regulatory capacity, consolidation, and the regulator with his own capacity of economic rationale and economic fact-finding must be having clearer views about what the minimum requirements of competition are, because competition, regardless of how good a regulator you have, competition is the only way consumers can benefit on pricing and choice. So I think it is, while a lot of people, including business newspapers and business channels, do tend to get euphoric about consolidation, from a public policy standpoint and from a policy maker standpoint, for me, consolidation means less competition, less choice for consumers. Yeah. And that is not necessarily always a good thing, especially in India, where we've had a long history, as you've seen CCI, Competition Commission now, reveal, of cartelization and market fixing. So we have to be extremely careful that consolidation is not anti-consumer choice and anti-consumer. So that is precisely what I think the 2018 policy can start talking about. What is the minimum level of competition we need in India? Do we want 2 operators to start hogging all the spectrum and consolidating and holding all the spectrum? Or do we want a maximum amount of spectrum per operator to be like a cap to be determined? I don't have an answer, but I think these are legitimate things that can be discussed as part of reimagining telecoms, the issue of competition, the issue of consumer choice, the issue of consumer rights, the issue of technology, and issue of investors making money. So these are all areas that we need to rethink, retalk going forward.
Since we're in the realm of not providing solutions, but at least starting a conversation around some of the issues that the government needs to look at, Rajiv, what about the fate and future of MTNL and BSNL? Look, the government is talking about privatizing Air India. You know, what would your recommendation be on these two telecom behemoths within the public sector, which really haven't done much in the last few years?
No, I think you make a very, very good point. Both these companies, I remember in 2004, had a combined market value of $6.5–7 billion. And today, their market cap is a fraction of that. So technically, the taxpayers and the citizens of this country have lost $5.5 billion of value around those two companies. I think the government needs to completely relook at how MTNL and BSNL, how its ownership stake can be protected while we figure out a better way of managing those entities. Whether selling down the asset or the investment, or part sale of the investment, or a management contract with companies that are capable of managing it, I think those are issues that we should start a conversation around. But to just sit idly by and watch public money being funneled into a company or a group of companies that is being managed day on day with declining value is probably not the best solution for both those companies, their stakeholders, their employees. So we need, as part of reimagining telecoms going forward, also to look at how MTNL and BSNL, what their role should be in the ecosystem of telecom for the next decade.
So let me end then by asking you, Rajiv, you moved out of the sector in 2006. Would you have liked to continue? If you were actually an active participant today, what would your thoughts be?
No, but Shereen, I don't think I ever moved out. I think I just stopped being an entrepreneur in 2006. I've been, as you know, from 2006, the day I left my entrepreneurship and joined Parliament, I've been predominantly talking about telecom and technology in Parliament. So that's in my blood, technology and telecom. It will never leave me. I happen to be playing a very different role in this space now. That role will continue for as long as I have the opportunity to serve. But I think this remains something that this nation should be proud of. Telecom, this was built with a lot of blood, sweat, conflict, as you said, drama, melodrama, and litigation. But there are 110 crore consumers of India that can rightfully enjoy all that blood, sweat, and effort. So I'm pleased with where we are. I think we have an opportunity to do better in the next decade, and I'm hopeful that the government would heed my letter and start, the process of reimagining telecoms.
Well, let's see if the government does indeed start the process of reimagining the telecom sector. Rajiv Chandrasekhar has written to Prime Minister Modi with his thoughts on what ought to be done to ensure that India's telecom sector continues to reap the benefits of the past. But always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18 as we evaluate the road ahead for one of India's poster child's post-reform.